Welcome to Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. I'm Amy Shannon, but you can call me Amy. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome. I hope all is well with you. I'm Amy, and today I'm talking about how to describe your book and just figure out what genre your book is actually in. Now, I will be just giving as an example my books. It's a book of 4 in a series called Passionate Retribution. I'll be using it as a selfish plug and also to kind of give examples as I move forward with what I'm talking about. Passionate Retribution is a 4 series books, each one a standalone, and not very creative with the names, but it's Passionate Retribution, and then 2, 3, and 4 of the same title. And that's because each story is about that. Passionate Retribution, it's my way of saying sweet revenge, but in a way that makes sense to the character of Carly and her cast of friends and family, and where her friends are more family than her actual family is. So I would be using that as examples. Anyway, so moving forward, when you have finished writing your story, your book, I think when I say story, every life, every death, everything since the beginning of time is a story. Our ancestors, generations and generations ago, millions of years ago, before they actually handwrote books, and they did that. The first books were handwritten. Some of them were chiseled on stone, or they weren't books. They were, they drew pictures that told stories and hieroglyphics in caves, or they sat around the campfire or sat around something with their family, and the elders would tell stories, and then generations after that would continue to tell story. So whether a book is fiction, nonfiction, do it yourself, true crime, it's telling you a story. It's true or just a story, a legend, a myth. It's something. Whether you're writing a book about a serial killer or a private detective, that's a story. If you're writing a nonfiction historical book, you're writing a story that's true about the history of whatever topic you're writing about. If you are writing a poem, your poetry tells a story, and it doesn't have to be about characters. It could be about emotions or how you see the world or how you feel inside. So that's also a story. Writers are storytellers, whether they're journalists, anchormen, um, they're authors, they write for fun, people who write in their journals, people who write in diaries, and I think that's still a thing. So then everything is a storyteller. You all tell stories. If you're writing a how-to book, like say how to build a house, that is something that you are doing. You are telling a story, a true story, in the steps on how to build a house. So when you think about it, you may be starting out with a hammer and nail, and you end up with a house. Well, how did that house get built? And even though it's steps or do it yourself, it's a technical manual, it tells you something. You can learn from stories. Stories can take you to a place that you have never been before. You don't have to leave the comfort of your bed, your sofa, your lounge chair to go places in reading. So as moving forward, as thinking about your writing, what is your book about? Whether it's nonfiction or fiction or true crime or poetry, that or you should know. Then you want to think about the age targets. kids under 6, middle grade kids, 6 to 12, young adults, 13 to 17. Sometimes there's mature young adults, which I call the 16 plus. There's adults, obviously, anybody that's 18 or older. And then I think of the mature adult, and that's the 18 plus, where the book may have explicit language or scenes. And it's not necessarily about, it doesn't have to be sexual scenes. It could be graphic scenes. It could be a horror book that is very graphic and detailed and gory and all that nasty stuff that can happen. Um, you know, sometimes less is more, simple is more, and then other times more is better. It really just depends on the genre of your story. I call like romance, you add a lot of fluff and lovey-dovey stuff and people on cloud nine and things like that. So where you might add that to a romantic story, you're probably not going to write it if you're writing a hardcore story about a killer or a detective. There's not a lot of fluff. It's just the facts, you know. Um, so when you are finished with your story, think about what would be your subgenres. Now, subgenres, and this is my recommendation, is that you keep it under 3. I would say 1 or 2, 3 at the most. And what you are doing is thinking, okay, this story is like my story. When I think about Passionate Retribution, I would say, to describe my story, I would say Carly is focused on finding the person she believes who assaulted her and is killing others. So, when I think about Carly, she used to be a detective, and now um, she did training so she could be a private detective because her injuries prevent her from going back to work. And it's not just outward scars, it's also emotional scars as well. So I think about, okay, Carly, she's a detective, private detective, old former detective, that's her. And then when I think about her relationships and the case she's working on and how her family and her friends are, intertwined in her life. Her friends are more family than her actual family is. And there's that dynamic too. So I would think about, well, I think it's kind of like a drama. And then if I had to put a third one on there, I would say, a little bit of romance because Carly does end up, she tries to figure out who's in her heart. Like her heart won't, is trying to tell her brain who she actually loves, but she's in denial. And she tries to put that on a side burner when she's trying to deal with all the other stuff that is going on in her life. So that would be whatever that would fit my particular stories, you know. So when you finish your book and you get it down to where it's pretty much published ready, take your book and read it. Read it as if you were a reader. And I say that because pretend you didn't write it. Pretend you're a reader and you're reading it for the first time. What would you think of the story? How would you review it and not say, oh, I'm a great writer and I always get 5 stars? No. Think about the stories, make sure it makes sense, things that you would do and how you would describe the book. So, because you need to, well, if you want someone to publish your book other than yourself, you'll need the elevator pitch, a simple 2 sentence about your book that will grab people. You might want to add a tagline so you could put that at the top of your book description. You know, you could use And then you think about writing your book description. Do not write every little thing that will happen, because if someone reads your book description, they're like, oh, I don't have to read this book because I already know how it ends. So you don't want that. You want your book description to be concise. Um, maybe mention a couple characters, what a similar plot line, and then maybe at the end, and I do this a lot, is ask questions like, will Carly get the revenge she is looking for? Is Carly's revenge something like, um, is it revenge or is it truly justice? Two different things, but I'm asking the question. And then the reader will say, oh, well, maybe those questions should be answered in this book. And I'm going to read this book because this is the kind of genre that I like. So those are things that you want to know. You have to know. It's your work. What are you writing for? What story did you tell? Many times I see the genre and people just write literary fiction or fiction, and literary. It's just kind of like, yeah, it's a fiction book. That's what it tells me. It's a fiction book. And I know that literary is an actual BISAC category. That's your books categories that they have coded for, so you can, um, pick out the right genres when your publisher or you is going through the publishing process. When I see literary, I think of it's dramatic or it's a storyteller. And then as I read it, I might see, okay, well, it's more this than that. So if I update the category, you might want to rethink that. When I post my reviews and when I post them on my website and when I share them, one thing I add is the genre. So I will put your genre, the one you tell me it's about. But then if I read it, when I read it and I say, oh, it's about coming of age. Oh, it's a comedy. It's a crime book. It's not just literary. It's, it's an adventure or something like that. And I will add that to my review and where it gets posted. And maybe if you take the time and think about, oh, well, that's not the genre I told her it was, that maybe you could see what that what your story is about, coming from someone who has, I don't even know how many books I've read in my lifetime. I can tell you how many books I've read in the last, well, since 2014, but in my life, and not enough. I'll just say that, not enough. So if you're an author who wants to be on the show, or you just want your book to be on the show, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com/podcast for more information. If you're an author and you want your book reviewed, go to amysbookshelfreviews.com for more details. Thank you, and I will talk to you next week. This has been Amy's Bookshelf Reviews podcast. Thank you for listening, and always be kind and stay safe. Thank you.